Today, Great.com talks with Rex E. Head, who is Executive Director at Orphanage Support Services Organization. If you haven't heard of them, they are a non-profit organization on a mission to help children living in orphanages to reach their full potential. If you are new here, please press subscribe on YouTube or in your podcast app, because today we learn the importance of supporting children living in orphanages. Hello, Rex, and welcome to our podcast.
Hello, Ryan. Thanks for inviting me.
No, it's a pleasure to have you here, Rex. So let's get started. And I want to ask you the first question, Rex, which would be, say, for me and anybody new here, what is OSSO and what do you do?
Well, as you mentioned in your introduction, Orphanage Support Services Organization is an organization where we try to do everything we can to help children in orphanages or otherwise without parental care reach their potential to become the best that they possibly can, while building a bond or changing the lives of both the children and the volunteers and donors that work with us.
So why would you say then that is so important?
Well, children need many, many things, but to truly understand what we need to do and what our goal is, when a child is born, the only communication that child has is to cry. When the child is cold, when the child is hungry, when the child is lonely, it cries. That's reaching out to the universe, to the world, saying, I need something. And the people around it respond. Normally the people around it respond. And there's this give and take. When a person responds, a part of that child's brain connects and says, okay, when I cry, when I need, there's somebody there. A child in an orphanage or a child that's neglected will cry, but there's no one there to respond. The orphanage might be run by wonderful people, but there's not enough of them to respond. And what happens in a big orphanage, say, where there's 2 women to take care of 30 infants, the children cry and there's no one who can respond. The social part of that child's brain dies. It quits reaching out. And those children, it's been shown over and over again, those children quit reaching out. They quit crying. They turn their face to the wall and often they die or they don't thrive. We try to not only give the resources, the things that those children need, food, shelter, etc., but we try and help them, provide them with permanent, long-term and short-term people that can respond and give them what they need. The greatest thing in this world is to love and be loved, and we try and provide that as well.
I mean, you mentioned there, Rex, about, say, the children, say, crying because of that want or need for love. I mean, like, from what I've learned over the years, like, we as humans are molded, say, between the ages of approximately, say, 0 and 7 years of age, and we're shaped into the person that we are today. And say, for instance, if a child is crying and there's no one to, say, meet their needs, which is to come and comfort them, to love them, to respond, and give them that love that they really want and need and they're sort of yearning for, that those beliefs will be taken into, say, their adult life. And it could be beliefs, say, for instance, like, I'm not good enough, I'm not loved, etc. And they will take that with them throughout their whole adult life. So you mentioned about the volunteers as well that are there, and the amount of, say, children that they are looking after. So I want to know 2 things, if it's okay, Rex. What, on average, are the ages of these children that you're, say, helping, and what's the ratio of, say, like, supporters or carers or volunteers to children?
There's no one answer for that because we work in a number of different orphanages in a number of different places. And some orphanages kind of specialize and they'll just work with infants and toddlers. Others, the whole range, or it might be an orphanage of little girls or little boys. We try and improve the ratio as much as possible. We try and improve it with one good, caring, well-trained, permanent people that are local. But then we try and add to that volunteers that can augment that, so that a couple of nuns trying to take care of 25 or 30 little kids, they're stretched too thin. And even though they love the kids, they can't give enough. And we try and augment that. During the last 2 years with COVID, most of the orphanages for infection control have said no volunteers, and they've been short-staffed, and so it's been really hard. As things are opening up, we try and provide as much as we can. It's an interesting thing about orphanages. There's two kinds of orphanages, basically. There's the orphanage that says, we're well-equipped, well-staffed, we can take care of 10 children. And they try and hold it at that. There's another orphanage that says, we're well-equipped and staffed, we can take care of 10 children. But when the government shows up at the door with another child, they'll say, is there no place else for this child? There's no place else for this child. Then we'll take it. And an orphanage that's staffed and funded well enough to handle 10 children might have 40. I'd feel a little guilty that I had everything in this poor country and the people didn't have anything. And so would find an orphanage who would go buy 200 or 300 pounds of rice or beans and deliver it to the orphanage and feel like, wonderful us, aren't we great? But I walked into a little girls' orphanage and somehow it was different. And the first 30 minutes I was there was not less than 20 little girls hanging on to me, holding onto my pant leg, one on each of my fingers. And it occurred to me that the nuns, as wonderful as they were, these girls needed a dad. They needed to feel love from a father figure. And it occurred to me, everybody knows orphans need love, but they also need to give love. And I have to admit, I don't know that I've ever felt more loved there. And that connected with my brain. And I knew we had to do more. We had a couple duffel bags full of shoes and we left some rice and some beans, but they needed to know they're important. The only way a child can be told that they're important, and that is, I know this person loves me. And that's what we try and provide, either through volunteers, but ideally through local people who can be there permanently.
And again, Rex, it's just like you mentioned there, like you went in there and there were just these young children, like young girls, almost hanging off of you because not only did they want love, but they actually wanted to give love also. I mean, it's just so sad to hear that these young children are there without, say, a father figure as well. So I want to ask you then, what about the COVID impact? Like, how did that impact, say, what you guys do?
Well, fortunately, the local communities, in many cases, would reach out to these orphanages more than they had before to donate things, to reach out and help. But the orphanages, either by their own choice or by government mandates, they would not let volunteers in. Some of our volunteers left the countries they were in on the last flight because flights to the country had been shut down on a flight that had been chartered by the US Embassy. And so it impacted tremendously. And many of the workers were afraid to go to work or had their own issues. And so not only were we not there, but in many cases, there were fewer workers. It had a tremendous had a tremendous impact. We're just getting back into it now. And a lot of these children have lost ground. But an orphanage is an absurd thing, in my opinion. It's as if you and I decided to get together and said, okay, you said, Rex, let's start a bank, a treasury, where we keep all the gold and diamonds and money that nobody wants. That concept is absurd. There's no gold and diamonds or money that people don't want. Yet children are so much far more precious than any of those things. And yet there's these treasuries that we call orphanages for these children that nobody wants. That's because people don't get to know them. Once you do, you realize these are precious children. And parents don't go into parenthood saying, I want to dedicate my life, give everything I have, my money, my time, wear myself to the bone, just out of pure, because I'm a good person. No, parents want to love and be loved. And children give them that. Children pay their way by giving adults what they need, giving their life meaning. Well, we seek to do the same things, and we give our volunteers and our donors a meaning as we connect them with children that they say, I had no idea these children are as precious as my own. And they become, in a small way, their own.
I mean, that's so nice to hear, and I love the way you mentioned it about, say, the gold and the diamonds, because children and a human, and like children especially, are so much more precious and valuable than anything in the world. Um, so what I'd like to know, Rex, could you sort of tell us about the process? Say, for instance, like, do the children stay there, or do they get put up for adoption? And say, for instance, a family would come in and adopt the child.
Well, once again, every orphanage is different. The orphanages that have predominantly infants and toddlers, healthy infants and toddlers, there is hope that those children will be adopted, because locally and internationally, there's parents, once again, not necessarily totally unselfish, doing it to help children. They want to give and receive love of a child, but almost all of them want a healthy infant. And so if the country and the circumstances, because adoptions during COVID, international adoptions almost disappeared as well. But if the politics and everything else is favorable, healthy infants who are adoptable can find families, can find parents that want them. If the child is disabled in any way, 3 or 4 or 5 years old, there's orphanages we've been working in for 25 years that specializes in school age kids that haven't had an adoption in 25 years, not because the children aren't adoptable legally, but because nobody wants them. That orphanage with 25 little girls hanging off of me, that's the orphanage I'm talking about. Actually, one child in 25 years has been adopted. The rest don't, but they are so precious. Many of them still call me daddy, and they are worth their weight in gold to me or to anyone who got to know them. So no, most of them don't get adopted. 99.9% of children in orphanages around the world will not be adopted. Maybe that's too high. 99% at least, maybe not 99.9.
I mean, again, Rex, like, it's so powerful what you just said there. Is so, I don't know, like, it made me shiver inside. Like, when you said that because of these, say, children are not wanted. Like, just imagine that feeling to feel to feel as though you say you're not wanted. Like it's maybe a horrible feeling. So just for the individual that is actually in the adoption or in the orphanage, sorry, like their thoughts and feelings, etc. It's just unimaginable what they must be feeling as the individual. So yeah, please, Rex.
You know, we only do so much. I hate to pretend we save these children and give them totally back to normal lives. But I've had many of them as they get to be adults. They say, how is Sarah doing? Well, we've had 5,000 volunteers. I don't know Sarah. Because when I was a little girl, when she left, Sarah cried. She cried because she loved me. And that means I'm lovable. And I never realized that. And so just that, I'm lovable. I'm worth something. We had kind of a cool, we took all the kids in an orphanage on a field trip to see some of their beautiful country. And our tour guide was kind of this cool, I hate to say it, hippie-ish kind of, and he was in the country. And I said, in this country, often girls are not, it's a class conscious society. They'll grow up, will they find men, will they find wives, will they find people that will treat them well? And he said, well, maybe, but I can see your volunteers with these kids. They know that they're worth it. Whether they find everything that they should have in life, they know that they deserve it. They know that they know they're lovable because they are loved. And that's what we try and do. Kids come into orphanages, especially if they come older, they come in broken. Hate to talk about a child or a person as broken, as damaged, but there's things that are broken inside them. And even with the best of care, that won't be perfect. We can't always fix everything. But the process of trying, the process of loving them and knowing that they're loved and you knowing that they love you is healing. And our volunteers, our donors who connect, they also want to be loved. They want to love, they want to be loved. And that process is very healing. So yes, we need money. Yes, we need to buy food. Yes, we need to buy medicine. Yes, we need to provide education. But we also need to give them the best chance, and that's feeling like they're worthwhile.
I mean, I think from anyone, any human being, just a sentence I feel like could literally change your life, especially from that young age, for instance. Like for somebody to say a young child, I love you, or you're worthy, you're good enough, that would then plant into their mind, and they'll take that through with them through until adulthood. But if they're there and they've got no sort of support or parent figure around them or anyone to actually receive their love, like you say, show them love, but receive their love as well, I'm sure that child's just going to grow up thinking they're not lovable as well, which is going to have, say, some pretty harsh effects, say, growing up and growing into adulthood too. So, I mean, it is super, super important to provide these young children with love and support and, yeah, just to be there to guide them throughout their, say, younger lives. So, Rex, just as we sort of wrap this up now, I wanted to ask you, I know you sort of explained a lot of it now, but if I could just say, like, what would you say then is the biggest need of the individuals that you support, and how are you a part of the solution?
Well, the biggest need, the biggest need is, as I mentioned, to feel loved and lovable, that's not enough by itself. So one, we need volunteers. We need donors who can help us provide local long-term support. We also need funds. I feel like we serve both sides. We make a very definite effort to connect volunteers and donors so they can see personally what we're doing. And since we're in the orphanage, I used to be able to say before COVID, there's some of these orphanages, we have had volunteers there every day, virtually every day, 29 out of 30 days of the month for 20 years. We know what's going on in those orphanages. We know how those funds are spent. We know what they need. And we apply it, the best we can. I don't want to come across that we're going in to these horrible orphanages with these horrible people and we're the ones making the difference. Most of these orphanages, are run by wonderful people. But if you had 25 children waiting for you when you got home, you just couldn't do it. It doesn't matter how much you love them. You can't do it by yourself. You need that support. You need that help. So that's what we try and provide. So people who can donate, people who can volunteer, that's what the children need. We try and be a bridge of love and resources. And the love goes both ways. The children pay us back.
So Rex, what then I know it's pretty simple, but what would you say then your vision is for the future?
Well, we have to get bigger. We have to get bigger without becoming more impersonal. We have to have people that want to invest, not just for a 3-month volunteer stint, but that can be involved. At one point, I went to China, was asked to go evaluate some orphanages in mainland China. And then I went back to that one orphanage where I said the little girls that I got started, they knew I'd been in China looking at orphanages. And I got back and there's a little huddle of little girls off to the side talking. And one of the braver ones came over to me and said, we know you've been in China and we know that they probably need help more than we do, but you'll still love us, won't you? And it broke my heart. And I said, I can't, how can I, there was a personal connection. We can only make so many personal connections. It has to be personal. So we have to grow, but we have to grow with people who are willing to invest and say, hey, I want to help you in Indonesia because I have a connection. Well, we'll help you. But we need people that they need to feel loved, not just supported. Well, here's money for education. Here's money for food. There has to be somebody there so that the children will say, but you love us, don't you? Yes. Yes, I love you. I love you. And so we need short-term volunteers. We need dedicated people. We can't afford to give it to them as if this is your career. We need dedicated people that can help and go and continue to go. And that's what we need. And not everybody can do that, but they can help us with resources so that other people might have the time, but they don't have the resources to do it all on their own.
So Rex, what can somebody do to help that's listening today? And what action steps can they take to be a part of the solution?
Well, you can go to our website. The easiest thing is to click and say, okay, I'm going to donate $5. $5 goes a long way in a third world country. Or I'll donate 500, or I'll donate 5,000. That helps. And we desperately need that kind of support. They can say, and maybe I'll try and go and be a volunteer, or I will provide funds so my granddaughter or daughter or nephew can go and serve. But I'm happy if people just realize that there's this need. They help solve the problem we're solving, even if they don't help us. If they just realize, and it's not just a third world problem. There's children in every country in the world that need to feel loved. And so if people just say, well, I don't trust Rex, I don't trust OSSO, I don't know them, I'm going to get involved in my local community, that serves our mission. That serves our mission. If something we've said today touches them, then reach out. Reach out and make a difference. Help us to make a difference. Come with us. You'll come and serve with us, and you'll come back a different person. And you'll look at your local community different. And you'll see that there's children there and adults that just need to feel loved. And you might start out doing it because you think you're selfless. You want to be unselfish. I promise you will get repaid. That debt, you will be repaid. I don't know. I don't want to sound too commercial and say, click here, send money. Your $10 will buy food and vegetables for a child for a month. Yes, that's true. But that's not our message. Our message is there are people around you that need love. And you can give it. And you need love, and they can give it back. We can help with that, or you can find it on your own.
Rex, I just want to say thank you so much for today. I mean, very, very profound that today. So I'm sure many people can take a lot away from this, and I'm sure many people listening will be super impacted by what you said today. So for you listening, if you've enjoyed this episode, please press subscribe on YouTube or in your podcast app, because that will show the algorithm that this is an important conversation, so more people can learn the importance of supporting and loving those children in need.